Hi Roman, and welcome to your first ArchDaily interview. Can you first start by introducing yourself?
Yes, my name is Roman Meyer Falcón. I was Ministry of State of Urban and Housing Development in Mexico.
Okay, so why did you decide to support and start this approach to public architecture?
Well, architecture for us in Mexico was not the main focus, but the development of local infrastructure in many of the sites or the areas, urban areas in Mexico of lower income, where many of those families don't have basic infrastructure like public parks, plazas, markets, schools, clinic facilities. So the main object of the federal government was implementing this basic infrastructure that in 40% or 50% of the urban Mexican structure they don't have. And then with the architects, we started to developing these projects all over the country.
Nice. And in your opinion, what role does basically public architecture or public intervention play in addressing the societal challenges in Mexico?
Well, I think it must be, from point of view, a universal point of view, and also in Latin America. I think the architects and architecture has the purpose in urban public infrastructure to giving meaning to the community. So if you construct a new public park, a new school, a new high school, whatever, instead of developing a prototype of infrastructure that it's the same one in the north, the middle, and the south of the country, then you have this advantage of the architects and the architecture. Not as one may think that's the beauty of the construction, but for the communities to have an engagement directly with that intervention. So that the communities feel proud of the new school, feel proud of the new public park, because many of these communities where we have this type of intervention, they don't have any of the basic infrastructure, let's say water, sewage, illumination. So they give them a sense of dignity, a sense of community for those areas.
A sense of belonging.
Yes, exactly.
So Colectivo C733 emphasizes working with communities rather than for them. What were the key factors that convinced basically the government or institution to move away from having standard design towards a more contextual approach in each one of these areas?
Well, I think that in the first place, I'm an architect, so from that point of view, it's impossible, I think, to replicate the same structure in different parts. You have to understand local activities, climates, materials. So each intervention of the 1,300 interventions is different, because the necessities, the materials, the budget, the land, it's different for each one. So it's basically impossible to replicate, for our point of view, the same models. You have to maybe use the same principles, ideas, like the use of triangle structures to resolve different projects, but they have to be different. Because the budget is different, because the necessities are different, because the climate is different, everything is different. You cannot replicate the same thing.
And obviously, you being an architect helped a lot with this idea also.
Yes, it helped a lot. When you are in government, let's say, and most of the senior top advisors or in the government structure, ministers or even a president, if they are not architects or they are not urban planners, it's very difficult, and it's not their fault, to understand the benefits of the design. So yes, it was a huge advantage.
How do you assess the long-term success of these public architecture projects, these over 1,000 projects that you guys did in a couple of years? And what impact do you expect do you expect them to have on the communities and the urban landscape?
So in that question, we almost have a time lapse. When we give a new infrastructure to the community, to local government, to regional governments, it takes more or less 2 years to activate, so that the community know that this space is for them. It was designed for the community, so the community can go and use the new installations and also have a relationship with the local government to say, hey, you need to change the lighting bulbs. You have to open the toilets. You have to pay the local teacher. You have to give maintenance. This type of demands that the public has more or less takes 2 years, because it takes 2 years so the community understands the new infrastructure, understands that it's a new area for them to use. And so you have to watch out the next 2 years. When you finish one infrastructure, your job is not finished. It's at the 50%. Then you have to be 2 years going back each month to make an evaluation. If the space is open, if they have infrastructure, they have water, they have sewage. And then it's like magic. Then it's like planting a tree. Then you don't need to pour water inside. It's already by itself growing. So more or less, that's the history or our knowledge of public space in Mexico.
Interesting. And what lessons from Colectivo, from their project, but also from your experience, do you think could be applied to other cities or regions in Mexico or beyond also?
I think one basic idea. One, if you work at any type of level of government, no? And even though you work in the Ministry of Health, of Education, etc., etc., most of your actions are outside of the office, are in the territories, are in the communities. You have to spend most of your time outside of the office. You have to be all the time watching the construction sites, the implementation, even though it's a new school, housing facilities, urban planning, whatever. As federal government, you have the necessity of being outside all the time. And that will be the best advice I can give. Being 70% in territory and 30% in office.
Finally, Roman, would you encourage more architects to follow, let's say, a path in governmental institutions?
Yes, it will be a good idea, because being pragmatic, no? One in office has to be a very pragmatic person. If the head of the division in the area acknowledges architecture, understands urban planning, and since the government has the monopoly of urban spaces, public spaces, you cannot construct outside of your house anything. It has to be the state, and the state has a monopoly on public space. So the opportunity of large implementation policies, of great scale policies, it could be only made in government. In private sector, you can do it, but it will be small size or medium size.
Or impact.
And small, the huge impact is at government entities.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.